if he associates with devotees repeatedly or always, sadhu sangena, he can be elevated to the highest perfection. Narada Muni is explaining this in relation to his own life. The Sankirtana movement is important, for regardless of whether one is a Sudra, Vaishya, Malecha, Yavana, or whatever, if one associates with the pure devotee, follows his instructions, and serves the pure devotee, his life is successful. This is bhakti. Anukulyena, Krishnanusilanam. Bhakti consists of serving Krishna with his devotees very favorably. Anya vilasita sunyam. If one has no desire other than to serve Krishna and his devotee, then his life is successful. This is explained by Narada Muni through his practical example from his own life. Okay. Text 74. The process of chanting the holy name of the Lord is so powerful that by this chanting, even householders, grihastas, can very easily gain this ultimate result achieved by persons in the renounced order. Maharaja Yudhishthira, I have now explained to you that process of religion. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. This is a confirmation of the Krishna consciousness movement. Very important. Anyone who takes part in this movement, regardless of what he is, can gain the topmost result achieved by a perfect sannyasi, namely Brahma Jnana, spiritual knowledge. Even more important, he can advance in devotional service. Maharaja Yudhishthira thought that because he was a grihasta, there was no hope of his being liberated. And therefore, he asked Narada Muni how he could get out of material entanglement. But Narada Muni, citing a practical example from his own life, established that by associating with devotees and chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, any man in any condition of life can achieve the highest perfection without a doubt. Text 75. Segment. My dear Maharaj Yudhishthira, you Pandavas are so very fortunate in this world that many, many great saints who can purify all the planets of the universe come to your house just like ordinary visitors. Furthermore, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is living confidentially within you in your house, just like your brother. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Here's a statement exalting a Vaishnava. In human society, a Brahmana is the most respected person. A Brahmana is one who can understand Brahman, the impersonal Brahman, but hardly ever can one understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A Brahmana, may be extremely fortunate in having achieved Brahma Jnana, but the Pandavas were so exalted that the Para Brahman, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was living in their house like an ordinary human being. The word Buri Baga, Buri Baga indicates that the Pandavas were in a still higher position than the brahmacharis and brahmanas. In the following verses, Narada Muni repeatedly glorifies the position of the Pandavas. Text 76. Second. How wonderful it is that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Parabrahman, Krishna, who is sought by great sages for the sake of liberation and transcendental bliss, is acting as your best wisher, your friend, your cousin, your heart and soul, your worshipable director, and your spiritual master. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Krishna can become the director and spiritual master of anyone who is serious about getting the mercy of Krishna. Let me read that again. Krishna can become the director and spiritual master of anyone who is serious about getting the mercy of Krishna. The Lord sends the spiritual master to train a devotee. And when the devotee is advanced, the Lord acts as the spiritual master within his heart. Tesam satata yuktanam, vajitam puti gurvagam, dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam payamtate. To those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. End of quote. Krishna does not become the direct spiritual master unless one is fully trained by his representative spiritual master. Therefore, as we have already discussed, the Lord's representative spiritual master should not be considered an ordinary human being. The representative spiritual master never never gives any false knowledge to his disciple, but only perfect knowledge. Thus, he is the representative of Krishna. Krishna helps as the guru or spiritual master from within and from without. From without, he helps the devotee as his representative. And from within, he talks personally with the pure devotee and gives him instructions by which he may return to his perfect body. Text number 77. Present here now is the same Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose true form cannot be understood even by such great personalities as Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. He is realized by devotees because of their unflinching surrender. May that same personality of Godhead, who is the maintainer of his devotees, and who is worshipped by silence, by devotional service, and by cessation of material activities, be pleased with us. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Lord Krishna is not properly understood even by such exalted personalities as Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma. What to speak of ordinary men, but by his causeless mercy, he bestows the benediction of devotion upon his devotees, who can thus understand Krishna as he is. Bhaktya mam abhijanati yaman yaschasmi tattva. No one within this universe can understand Krishna in truth. But if one engages in devotional service, one can understand him perfectly. One can understand him perfectly well. This is also confirmed by the Lord in the 7th chapter of Harivilas 7.1. Maya Sakta Manakpata Yogam Yunjan Madasraya Asam Sayam Samagramam Yata Yasasitatrinu. Now, hear, O son of Prita, Arjuna, how by practicing the yoga, I'm sorry, by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. Lord Krishna himself teaches how one can understand him perfectly well, without a doubt. Not only the Pandavas, but everyone who sincerely accepts the instructions of Krishna can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead as he is. After instructing Yudhishthira Maharaja, Narada Muni prays for the Lord's blessings, that he be pleased with everyone and that everyone become perfect in God consciousness and return home back to Godhead. Text number 78. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, Maharaj Yudhishthira, the best member of the Bharata dynasty, thus learned everything from the descriptions of Narada Muni. After hearing these instructions, he felt great pleasure from within his heart and in great ecstasy, love and affection. He worshipped Lord Krishna. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. It is natural that when someone belonging to one's family circle is understood to be very great, one becomes ecstatic in love, thinking, oh, such a great personality is our relative. When Sri Krishna, who was already known to the Pandavas, was further described by Narada Muni to be the supreme personality of Godhead, naturally the Pandavas were amazed, thinking, the supreme personality of Godhead is with us as our cousin. Certainly their ecstasy was extraordinary. Text 79. It says, Narada Muni, being worshipped by Krishna and Maharaj Yudhishthira, bade them farewell and went away. Yudhishthira Maharaja, having heard that Krishna, his cousin, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was struck with wonder. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. After hearing the conversation between Narada and Yudhishthira, if one still has any doubts about Krishna's being the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one should immediately give them up. Samsayam samagram, without any doubt and without any defect. One should understand Krishna to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus surrender at his lotus feet. Ordinary persons do not know this, even after hearing all the Vedas. But if one is fortunate, although it may be even after many, many births, he comes to this conclusion. Bhavanam janmanamante janavam mam prapadyate. Text 80. On all the planets within this universe, the varieties of living entities, moving and non-moving, including the demigods, demons, and human beings, were all generated from the daughters of Maharaja Daksha. I have now described them and their different dynasties. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the seventh canto, 15th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Instructions for Civilized Human Beings, completed on the night of Vaishakhi Sukla Ekadasi, the 10th of May, 1976, in the temple of the Panchatattva, New Navadvipa or Honolulu, by the mercy of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu, Nityananda, Shri Advaita Vedanta, Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Thus, we may happily chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. End of the seventh canto. All with divine grace. Hey, see, Bhaktivedanta Swami. Right, well, that's the end of this book. Yeah. Thank you.
We just start with the introduction or maybe?
Yeah. Now we are on the eighth canto, Srimad Bhagavatam. Introduction. This Bhagavata Purana is as brilliant as the sun. It has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied by religion, knowledge, etc. Persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance in the age of Kali shall get light from the Purana, Srimad Bhagavatam 1.3.34. The timeless wisdom of India is expressed in the Vedas, ancient Sanskrit texts that touch upon all fields of human knowledge. Originally preserved through oral tradition, the Vedas were first put into writing 5,000 years ago by Srila Vyasadeva, the literary incarnation of God. After compiling the Vedas, Vyasadeva set forth their essence in the aphorisms known as Vedanta Sutras. Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Purana, is Vasudeva's commentary on his own Vasudeva Sutra. It was written in the maturity of his spiritual life, under the direction of Narada Muni, his spiritual master, referred to as the ripened fruit of the tree of Vedic literature. Srimad Bhagavatam is the most complete and authoritative exposition of Vedic knowledge. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. After compiling the Bhagavatam, Vyasa imparted the synopsis of it to his son, the sage Sukadeva Goswami. Sukadeva Goswami subsequently recited the entire Bhagavatam to Maharaj Parikshit in an assembly of learned saints on the bank of the Ganges at Hastinapura, New Delhi. Maharaj Parikshit was the emperor of the world and was a great Rajarsi, saintly king, having received a warning that he would die within a week. He renounced his entire kingdom and retired to the bank of the Ganges to fast until death and receive spiritual enlightenment. The Bhagavatam begins with the Emperor Parikshit's sober inquiry to Sukadeva Goswami quote, "You are the spiritual master of great saints and devotees. I am therefore begging you to show the way of perfection for all persons, and especially for one who is about to die. Please let me know what a man should hear, chant, remember, and worship, and also what he should not do. Please explain all this to me." Sukadeva Goswami, Sukadeva Goswami's answer to this question and numerous other questions posed by Maharaj Pariksit concerning everything from the nature of the self to the origin of the universe held the assembled sages in rapt attention continuously for 7 days leading up to the king's death. The sage Sutta Goswami, who was present in that assembly when Sukadeva Goswami first recited Srimad Bhagavatam, later repeated the Bhagavatam before a gathering of sages in the forest of the Naimisharanya. Those sages, concerned about the spiritual welfare of the people in general, had gathered to perform a long, continuous chain of sacrifices to counteract the degrading influence of the incipient age of Kali. In response to the sages' request that he speak the essence of Vedic wisdom, Sutta Goswami repeated from memory the entire 18,000 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam as spoken by Sukadeva Goswami to Maharaj Pariksit. Well, that's not an easy thing to do. The reader of Srimad Bhagavatam hears Sutta Goswami relate the questions of Maharaj Pariksit and the answers of Sukadeva Goswami. Also, Sutta Goswami sometimes responds directly by questions put by Sonaka Rishi, the spokesperson, the spokesman for the sages gathered at Naimisharanya. One therefore simultaneously hears two dialogues, very important. One between Maharaj Pariksit at Sukadeva Goswami on the bank of the Ganges, and another at Naimisharanya between Sutta Goswami and sages at Naimisharanya forest. Very important to understand who is speaking. Okay, so Maharaj Pariksit and Sukadeva Goswami on the bank of the Ganges, and another at Naimisharanya between Sutta Goswami and the sages at Naimisharanya forest, headed by Sonaka Rishi. Furthermore, while instructing King Pariksit, Sukadeva Goswami often relates historical episodes and gives accounts of lengthy philosophical discussion between such great souls as Narada Muni and Vyasadeva. With this understanding of the history of the Bhagavatam, the reader will easily be able to follow it intermingling of dialogues and events from various sources. Since philosophical wisdom, not chronological order, is most important in the text, one need only be attentive to the subject matter of Srimad Bhagavatam to appreciate fully its profound message. The translators of this edition compare the Bhagavatam to sugar candy. Wherever you taste it, you will find it equally sweet and relishable. Therefore, To taste the sweetness of the Bhagavatam, one may begin by reading any of its volumes. After such an introductory taste, however, the serious reader is best advised to go back to the first canto and then proceed through the Bhagavatam, canto after canto, in its natural order. Okay, very good advice. This edition of the Bhagavatam is the first complete English translation of this important text with an elaborate commentary, and it is the first widely available to the English-speaking public. Oh, glories to Srila Prabhupada. This is the first time that this Srimad Bhagavatam is being heard by Srila Prabhupada for the benefit of all people. The first 12 volumes, Canto 1 through Canto 10, Part 1, are the product of the scholarly and devotional efforts of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness and the world's most distinguished teacher of Indian religious and philosophical thought. His consummate Sanskrit scholarship and intimate familiarity with Vedic culture and thought, as well as the modern way of life, combine to reveal to the West a magnificent exposition of this important classic. After the departure of Srila Prabhupada from this world in 1977, his monumental work of translating and annotating Srimad Bhagavatam has been continued by his disciples, Hridayananda Dasa Goswami and Gopi Parananda Dana Dasa. Readers will find this work of value for many reasons. For those interested in the classical roots of Indian civilization, it serves as a vast reservoir of detailed information on virtually every one of its aspects. For students of comparative philosophy and religion, the Bhagavatam offers a penetrating view into the meaning of India's profound spiritual heritage. To sociologists and anthropologists, the Bhagavan reveals the practical workings of a peaceful and scientifically organized Vedic culture, whose institutions were integrated on the basis of a highly developed spiritual worldview. Students of literature will discover the Bhagavatam to be a masterpiece of majestic poetry. For students of psychology, the text provides important perspectives on the nature of consciousness, human behavior, and the philosophical study of identity. Finally, to those seeking spiritual insight, the Bhagavatam offers simple and practical guidance for attainment of the highest self-knowledge and realization of the absolute truth. The entire spiritual volume text presented by the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust promises to occupy a significant place in the intellectual, cultural, and spiritual life of modern man for a long time to come. And that finishes this introduction by the publishers. Okay. Chapter 1, the Manus Administrators of the Universe. First of all, let me offer my humble, respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, Sri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada. Sometime in the year 1935, when His Divine Grace was staying at Radhakunda, I went to see him from Bombay. At that time, he gave me many important instructions in regard to constructing temples and publishing books. He personally told me that publishing books is more important than constructing temples. Of course, those same instructions remained with my mind for many years. In 1944, I began publishing my Back to Godhead, and when I retired from family life in 1958, I began publishing Srimad Bhagavatam in Delhi. When three parts of Srimad Bhagavatam had been published in India, I then started for the United States of America on the 13th of August, 1965. I am continuously trying to publish books, as suggested by my spiritual master. Now, in this year, 1976, I have completed the seventh canto of Srimad Bhagavatam and a summary of the 10th canto that has already been published as Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God. Still, the 8th canto, ninth canto, 10th canto, 11th canto, and 12th canto are yet to be published. On this occasion, therefore, I am praying to my spiritual master to give me strength to finish this work. I am neither a great scholar nor a great devotee. I am simply a humble servant of my spiritual master. And to the best of my ability, I am trying to please Krishna by publishing these books with the cooperation of my disciples in America. Fortunately, scholars all over the world are appreciating these publications. Let us cooperatively publish more and more volumes of Srimad Bhagavatam, just to please His Divine Grace, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. S.T. Much Prabhupada loves his Gurudev.
Very important.
Amazing. This first chapter of the 8th canto may be summarized as a description of four manus, namely Swayambhuva, Swarochiza, Uttama, and Tamasa. After hearing descriptions of the dynasty of Swayambhuva Manu until the end of the 7th canto, Maharaj Parikshit desired to know about other Manus. He desired to understand how the Supreme Personality of Godhead descends, not only in the past, but at the present and in the future, and how he acts in various pastimes as Manu. Since Parikshit Maharaj was eager to know all this, Sukadeva Goswami gradually described all the Manus, beginning with the 6 Manus who had appeared in the past. The first Manu was Swayambhuva Manu. His 2 daughters, namely Akuti and Devahuti, gave birth to 2 sons named Yajna and Kapila, respectively. Because Sukadeva Goswami had already described the activities of Kapila in the 3rd canto, he now described the activities of Yajna. The original Manu, along with his wife Satarupa, went into the forest to practice austerities on the bank of the river Sunanda. They practiced austerities for 100 years. for 800 years. And then Manu, in a trance, formed prayers to the Supreme Personality of God. Rakshasas and Asuras then attempted to devour him with Yajna, accompanied by his sons, the Yamas and the demigods, killed them. Then Yajna personally took the part of Indra, the king of the heavenly planets. The second Manu, whose name was Swarochisa, was the son of Agni, and his sons were headed by Dumat, Susena, and Rochismat. In the age of this Manu, Rochana became Indra, the ruler of the heavenly planets. And there were many demigods headed by Tusita. There were also many saintly persons, such as Urja and Stamba. Among them was Vedasira, whose wife Tusta, gave birth to Vibhu. Vibhu instructed 88,000 Drida Vratas, or saintly persons. Vibhu instructed 88,000 Drita Vratas, or saintly persons, on self-control and austerity. Wow, such an important subject. Uttama, the son of Priyavrata, was the third Manu. Among his sons were Pavana and Shinjaya and Yajnahotra. During the reign of this Manu, the sons of Vasista, headed by Pramada, became the seventh saintly persons. The Satyas, Devasrutas, and Vajras became the demigods, and Satyajit became Indra, from the womb of Sunrita, the wife of Dharma. The Lord appeared as Satyasena, and he killed all the yakshas and rakshasas who were fighting with Satyajit. Tamasa, the brother of the third Manu, was the fourth Manu, and he had 10 sons, including Prithu, Kiyati, Nara, and Ketu. During his reign, the Satyakas, Harish, and Viras, and others were demigods. The seven great saints were headed by Jyotir Dharma, and Trishika became Indra. Hari Meda begot a son named Hari in the womb of his wife Harini. This Hari, an incarnation of God, saved the devotee Gajendra. Thus, this incident is described as Gajendra Mokshana. At the end of this chapter, Parikshit Maharaja particularly asks about this incident. What incident? It's about the saving how Hari, an incarnation of God, saved the devotee Gajendra. This incident is described as Gajendra Mokshana. At the end of this chapter, Parikshit Maharaj particularly asks about this incident. Text number 1, and we're reading from Canto 8, Chapter 1, Text 2, Manus, administrators of the universe. Now, we should begin with Text 1. Shri Rajovacha Swayam Gu Vas Yeha Guru Vamso Yam Vistarach Churta Yatcha Vishwa Srijam Sargo Manum Anyam Vadasvana. King Parikshit said, O my lord, my spiritual master, now I have fully heard from your grace about the dynasty of Swayambhuva Manu. But there are also other Manus, and I want to hear about their dynasties. Kindly describe them to us. Translation. Text number 2. Manvatare Harir Janma Karmanicha Mahiya Sa Grinanti Kavayo Brahmans Tani no Vada Shinvatam. O learned Brahman, Sukadeva Goswami, the great learned persons who are completely intelligent describe the activities and appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead during the various Manvantaras. We are very eager to hear about these narrations. Kindly describe them. Mighty bold. You see how eager pure devotees are. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has different varieties of incarnations, including the Guna avatars, Manvantara avatars, Leela avatars, and Yuga avatars, all of which are described in the Shastras. Without reference to the Shastras, there can be no question of accepting anyone as an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of God. Therefore, as especially mentioned here, Grinanti Kavaya, the descriptions of various incarnations are accepted by great learned scholars with perfect intelligence. At the present time, especially in India, so many rascals are claiming to be incarnations, and people are being misled. Therefore, the identity of an incarnation should be confirmed by the descriptions of the Shastras and by wonderful activities, as described in this verse by the word Mahiyasa. The activities of an incarnation are not ordinary magic or jugglery, but are wonderful activities. Thus, any incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead must be supported by the statements of the Shastra and must actually perform wonderful activities. Parikshit Maharaj was eager to hear about the Manus of different ages. There are 14 Manus during a day of Brahma, and the age of such Brahma, and the age of each Manu lasts for 71 yugas. Thus, there are thousands of Manus during the life of Brahma. Text number 3. O learned Brahmana, kindly describe to us whatever activities the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who created this cosmic manifestation, has performed in the past Manvantaras. is performing at present and will perform in the future Manvantaras. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said that both he and the other living entities present on the battlefield had exited in the past. Had existed in the past. They existed at present, and they would continue to exist in the future. Past, present, and future always exist, both for the Supreme Personality of Godhead and for ordinary living entities. Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam. Both the Lord and the living entities are eternal and sentient. But the difference is that the Lord is unlimited, whereas the living entities are limited. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the creator of everything. And although the living entities are not created, but exist with the Lord eternally, their bodies are created, whereas the Supreme Lord's body is never created. There is no difference between the Supreme Lord and his body, but the conditioned soul, although eternal, is different from his body. Text number 4. Sukadeva Goswami said, in the present Kalpa, there have already been 6 months. I have described to you Swayambhuva Manu and the appearance of many demigods. In this Kalpa, Brahma, Swayambhuva, is the first Manu. Text number 5. Swayambhuva Manu had 2 daughters named Akuti and Devahuti. From their wombs, the Supreme Personality of Godhead appeared as 2 sons named Yajnamurti and Kapila, respectively. These sons were entrusted with preaching about religion and knowledge. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Devahuti's son was known as Kapila, and Akuti's son was known as Yajnamurti. Both of them taught about the religion and philosophical knowledge. Text number 6. O best of the Kurus, I have already described in the 3rd canto the activities of Kapila, the son of Devahuti. Now, I shall describe the activities of Yajnapati, the son of Akuti. Text 7. Virakta Karna Bhogesu Satavrupa Pati Prabhu Visrijya Rajyam Tapase Sabaryo Vanam Avisat. Swayambhuva Manu, the husband of Satarupa, was by nature not at all attached to enjoyment of the senses. Thus he gave up his kingdom of sense enjoyment and entered the forest with his wife to practice austerities. Okay, well, it's very noble, very noble. Purport, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 4.2, Evam parampara praptam imam prajarsayo vidu. The supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way. End of quote. All the Manus were perfect kings. They were Rajarsis. In other words, although they held posts as kings of the world, they were as good as great saints. Swayambhuva Manu for example, was the emperor of the world. Yet he had no desire for sense gratification. This is the meaning of monarchy. The king of the country or the emperor of the empire must be so trained that by nature he renounces sense gratification. It is not that because one becomes king, he should unnecessarily spend money for sense gratification. As soon as kings became degraded, spending money for sense gratification, they were lost. Similarly, at the present moment, monarchy having been lost, the people have created democracy, or in other words, Damon crazy, as Prabhupada says, which is all failing. Now, by the laws of nature, the time is coming when dictatorship will put the citizens into more and more difficulty. If the king or director individually or the members of the government collectively cannot maintain the state of kingdom according to the rules of Manusamhita, certainly their government will not endure. In other words, it's going to disappear. Text number 8. O Skyan of Bharata. After Swayambhuva Manu had thus entered the forest with his wife, he stood on one leg on the bank of the river Sunanda, and in this way, with only one leg touching the earth, he performed great austerities for 100 years. While performing these austerities, he spoke as follows. Oh my God, I wouldn't even be able to do this for one day. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura comments that the word anvaha means that he chanted or murmured to himself, not that he lectured to anyone. Interesting. He murmured to himself. He didn't give a lecture. Text number 9. Sa Manur Uvacha. Yena Cheta Yate Vishvam. Vishvam Cheta Yate Na Yam. Yo Jagrati Sayane Smen Nayam Tam Veda Veda Saha or Sa. Lord Manu said, the Supreme Living Being has created this material world of animation, and it is not that he was created by this material world. When everything is silent, the Supreme Being stays awake as a witness. The living entity does not hold him. This does not know him, but he knows everything. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Here is a distinction between the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entities. Nityo Nityanam, Chitanas Chitananam. According to the Vedic version, the Lord is the Supreme Eternal, the Supreme Living Being. The difference between the Supreme Being and the ordinary living being is that when this material world is annihilated, all the living entities remain silent in oblivion, in a dreaming or unconscious condition, whereas the Supreme Being stays awake as the witness of everything. This material world is created. It stays for some time, and then it is annihilated. Throughout these changes, however, the Supreme Being remains awake in the material condition of all living. In the material condition of all living entities, there are 3 stages of dreaming. When the material world is awake and put in working order. This is a kind of dream, a waking dream. When the living entities go to sleep, they dream again. And when unconscious at the time of annihilation, when this material world is unmanifested, they enter another stage of dreaming. All at any stage in the material world, therefore, they are all dreaming. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, however, everyone is awake. Very important. Text number 10. Within this universe, the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his super soul feature is present everywhere. Wherever there are animate or inanimate beings. Therefore, one should accept only that which is allotted to him. One should not desire to infringe upon the property of others. Now, that is very good advice. Purport. Having described the situation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as transcendental, Swayambhuva Manu, for the instruction of the sons and grandsons of his dynasty, is now describing all the property of the universe as belonging to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Manu's instructions are not only for his own sons and grandsons, but for all the human society. The word man, or in Sanskrit, manusya, has been derived from the name Manu, for all the members of human society are descendants of the original Manu. Manu is also mentioned in Bhagavad Gita 4.1, where the Lord says, Imam vivasvate yogam prukrivam aham avyayam vivaswan manve praha manu evakshave prajit. I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to the sun god, Vivaswan, and Vivaswan instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind, and Manu, in turn, instructed it to Ikshwaku. End of quote. Swayambhuva Manu and Vivaswata Manu have similar duties. Vivaswata Manu was born of the sun god, Vivaswan, and his son was Ikshwaku, the king of the earth. Since Manu is understood to be the original father of humanity, human society should follow his instructions. Swayambhuva Manu instructs that whatever exists, not only in the spiritual world, but even within the material world, is the body of the son, is the property of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is present everywhere as the super consciousness, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 13.3. Chetra Gyan Shapimam Vidhi Sarvachetre Subharata. In every field, in other words, in every body, the Supreme Lord is existing as the Super Soul. The individual soul is given a body in which to live and act according to the instructions of the Supreme Person. And therefore, the Supreme Person also exists within every body. We should not think that we are independent. Rather, we should understand that we are allotted a certain portion of the total property of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This understanding will lead to perfect communism. Communists think in terms of their own nations, but the spiritual communism instructed here is not only nationwide, but universal. Nothing belongs to any nation or any individual person. Everything belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the meaning of this verse. Atma Vasyam Idam Vishwam. Whatever exists within this universe is the property of the Supreme Personality of God. The modern communist theory and also the idea of the United Nations can be reformed, indeed rectified, by the understanding that everything begins to the Supreme Personality of God. The Lord is not a creation of our intelligence. Rather, He has created us. Atma Vasyami Idam Vishwam. Ishavashyam Idam Sarvam. This universal communionism can solve all the problems of the world. Wow. Okay. One should learn from the Vedic literatures that one's body is also not the property of the individual soul, but is given to the individual soul according to his karma. Karmana daiva netrena jantur deho prapadyate. The 8,400,000 different bodily forms are machines given to the individual soul. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 1861. Ishvara sarvabhutanam hrideshe rujinatistati. Ramayan sarvabhutani yantra rudrani mayaya. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is dancing and is directing the wanderings of all and living entities who are seated as on a machine made of the material energy. The Lord, as the supersoul, sits in everyone's heart and observes the various desires of the individual soul. The Lord is so merciful that He gives the living entity the opportunity to enjoy varieties of desires in suitable bodies, which are nothing but machines. Yantra Rudmani Maya. These machines are manufactured by the material ingredients of the external energy, and thus the living entity enjoys, suffers, or suffers according to his desires. This opportunity is given by the Supreme. Well, everything belongs to the Supreme, and therefore one should not usurp another's property. We have a tendency to manufacture many things, especially nowadays. We are building skyscrapers and uh, developing other material facilities. We should know, however, that the ingredients of the skyscrapers and machines cannot be manufactured by anyone but the Supreme Personality of God. The whole world is nothing but a Supreme Personality of Godhead. The whole world is nothing but a combination of the five material elements: Tejo, Vai, Vidam, Yata, Vini, Maya. A skyscraper is a transformation of earth, water, and fire. Earth and water are combined and burnt into bricks by fire. And a skyscraper is essentially a tall construction of bricks. Although the bricks may be manufactured by man, the ingredients of bricks are not. Of course, man, as a manufacturer, may accept a salary from the Supreme Personality of Godhead That is stated here. Tena tak tena punjita. One may construct a big skyscraper, but one neither uh, that is stated here. Tena tak tena punjita. One may construct a big skyscraper, but neither the constructor, the merchant, nor the worker can claim proprietorship. Proprietorship belongs to the person who has spent for the building. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has manufactured water, earth, air, fire, and the sky. And one can see these and take a salary. Tena taktena unjita. However, one cannot claim proprietorship. This is perfect communism. Our tendency to construct great buildings should be used only for the constructing. Second, only for constructing large and valuable temples in which to install the deity of the Supreme Personality of God. Then our desire for construction will be fulfilled. Since all property belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, everything should be offered to the Lord, and we should take only prashada. Tena taktena vunjitaha. We should not fight among ourselves to take more than we need. As Narada said to Maharaj Yudhishthira, Yavad Pri Yeta Jatagram Tavat Svatvam Hi Dehinam Adikam Yo Bimanyita Sasteno Dandam Arhati. One may claim proprietorship to as much wealth as required to maintain body and soul together. But one who desires proprietorship over more than that must be considered a thief, and he deserves to be punished by the laws of nature. Okay, here it is. You shouldn't take more than which is allotted to us. Bhagavad Gita 7.14.8. Of course, we need to be maintained in eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Ahara nidrabhaya maituna. But since the Supreme Lord, the Personality of Godhead, has provided these necessities of life for the birds and bees, why not for mankind? There is no need for economic development. Everything is provided. Therefore, one should understand that everything belongs to Krishna. And with this idea, one may take prashada. However, if one interferes with the allotment of others, he is a thief. We should not accept more than what we actually need. Therefore, if by chance we get an abundance of money, we should always consider that it belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Krishna consciousness, we are getting sufficient money, but we should never think that the money belongs to us. It belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and should be equally distributed to the workers, the devotees. No devotee should claim that any money or property belongs to him. If one thinks that any portion of property of the huge, of the huge universe belongs to anyone, he is to be considered a thief and is punishable. by the laws of nature. No one can surpass the vigilance of material nature or hide his intentions from material nature. If human society unlawfully claims that the property of the universe, either partially or wholly, belongs to mankind, all of human society will be cursed as a society of thieves and will be punished by the laws of nature. Now, that is a very serious statement. Let me read that again. If one thinks that any portion of property, money, of property of this huge universe belongs to anyone, he is to be considered a thief and is punishable by the laws of nature. No one can surpass the vigilance of material nature or hide his intentions from material nature. If human society unlawfully claims that the property of the universe, either partially or wholly, belongs to mankind, all of human society will be cursed as a society of thieves and will be punished by the laws of nature. Well, there are people like uh, there are people today who possess a vast amount of property or properties. So here it says, if human society unlawfully claims that the property of the universe, either partially or wholly, belongs to mankind, all the property of the universe, either partially or wholly, belongs to mankind, all of human society will be cursed as a society of thieves and will be punished by the laws of nature. So, what is the punishment? Sickness, getting old, dying, and so forth. So, no one actually is an owner of these. But who is the owner? Krishna is the owner. Therefore, we should never think that this is mine. We should always think this is Krishna's, and I am only managing it for a short period of time, and it meaning some part of the material world. I'm only managing it on behalf of Krishna. It doesn't belong to me, but I will maintain it with my heart and soul. And I will never claim proprietorship. Okay, I think we're over time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's stop right there. If human society unlawfully claims that the property of the universe, either partially or wholly, belongs to mankind, all of human society will be cursed as a society of thieves and will be punished by the laws of nature. That is our takeaway for today. It is a severe, what you would call, warning not to think that we are the proprietor, but everything belongs to the Lord, and everything should be used in the service of the Lord. Otherwise, if we think everything belongs to me, we're going to go to hell. And that's going to be very painful. Okay, we'll stop right there. Are there any questions anyone would like to ask or comments? Our takeaway for today is the following statement. If human society unlawfully claims that the property of the universe, either partially or wholly, belongs to mankind, all of human society will be cursed as a society of thieves and will be punished by the laws of nature. Okay, we should seriously think about this statement. If human society unlawfully claims that the property of the universe, either partially or wholly, belongs to mankind, all of human society will be cursed as a society of thieves and will be punished by the laws of nature. Wow. But there are many people today that claim that the property of the universe, either partially or wholly, belongs to mankind. That means that uh, such uh, unlawful claims, property of the universe, either partially or wholly, belongs to mankind. All of human society will be cursed as a society of thieves and will be punished by the laws of nature. You better be very careful. Okay, I think our time is up. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, our takeaway for today. Therefore, one should understand that everything belongs to Krishna. And with this idea, one may take prasada. However, if one interferes with the allotments of others, he is a thief. We should not accept more than what is actually needed, what more than what we actually need. Therefore, if by chance we get an abundance of money, we should always consider that it belongs to the Supreme Personality of God. In Krishna consciousness, we are getting sufficient money, but we should never think that the money belongs to us. It belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and should be equally distributed to the workers, the devotees. No devotee should claim that any money or property belongs to him. Wow. If one thinks that any portion of property of this huge universe belongs to anyone, he is to be considered a thief and is punishable by the laws of nature. No one can surpass the vigilance of material nature or hide his intentions from material nature. If human society unlawfully claims that the property of the universe, either partially or wholly, belongs to mankind, all of human society will be cursed as a society of thieves and will be punished by the laws of nature. Okay, now, who actually believes that? Only devotees can accept that statement. All the so-called big and very moneyed people believe that everything belongs to them. That's why they're being cursed. If human society unlawfully claims that the property of the universe, either partially or wholly, belongs to mankind, all of human society will be cursed as a society of thieves and will be punished by the laws of nature. Okay, my dear devotees, thank you very much. We should be very, very careful and not be fooled by all the big millionaires and billionaires and now trillionaires and in the future quadruplaires. They will all suffer for their greed. Yes. Any questions or comments?
Yes, Maharaj, I have a. Could you please recount like one story? I remember you said that you have a god brother who's like really rich and some businesses, and but he only chants once a year. Like he told you.
On New Year's Eve.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. What do you want to know about it?
yeah, I was just kind of like wanted to confirm my recollection of that. I should.
Yeah. Yeah. You know,
He,
he's a
he,
very wealthy guy. He's a devotee of Prabhupada, but he has uh, left Prabhupada. He always thinks of Prabhupada, but he's left him and has become very, very rich and very clever person. And I asked him once, "Are you chanting?" And he said, "Yes, I'm chanting." I said, "Oh, that's good." He said, "Yeah, I chant once on New Year's Eve." He said, "But I don't chant like you. You're always chanting mechanically. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare." I don't chant like that. I just chant once on New Year's Eve, but my one chanting is better than all of your chanting. And I said, "Look, Prabhu, this is nonsense." Prabhupada never said, "I chant only once on New Year's Eve." This is your makeshift nonsense theory, which has no, uh, let's say, no validation. You're talking nonsense. And then he stopped talking.
thank you.
Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
One question, Maharaj.
Yeah.
Right. This purport was talking about we should not take more than what is allotted to us.
Yes.
For animals, it's very clear they cannot take more than what they can eat.
Yeah.
But how to determine that for a human being, how much is allotted to us? Because there is no end to collection. Some people think X amount is minimum. Some people think X plus Y is minimum. So it's all about perception. So what devotee should think or
The devotee should think that following the instructions that we are hearing every day from the Srimad Bhagavatam should be what we believe. We should not develop false concepts that we are the proprietor of everything or that this is mine. But you see, this is mine concept is right there from almost the beginning of life. You little kids, maybe they're 1 or 2 or 3 years old, they get into fights because they say, "This is mine," you know, and they refuse to share their ball or their something that they have with other kids. So you see, they're born with this is mine concept. That means that they haven't been educated properly yet. Otherwise, most people maintain this is mine concept throughout the whole life, and they will suffer terribly for causing so much, let's say, disturbance by their greediness. But that greediness is already manifested in a child, right? I remember when I was a kid, when I first went to school, I couldn't speak English at that time. I could only speak Armenian. But the first day I went to school, I brought a little shovel and a pail. I always used to play with that. Right? And somebody took the pail from me, and I got really upset. And I said, this is mine. Right? And then it was like a shovel, you know, I was trying to pull away from the person that took my shovel or my pail. So there it is, right there. It's something that's coming from a previous lifetime.
Right.
That we believe, you know, this is mine. It takes time for a child to be educated properly, to understand that everything belongs to Krishna. Nothing is mine. But if we're not properly educated, we believe this is mine. And eventually we'll be suffering because of that false concept. Yeah. Now you might say, well, what about all the millionaires in the world? How come they're enjoying so much opulence, and we're you know, just going day to day, you know, trying to make a living? We shouldn't be disturbed by that. They have some goods, let's say, uh, 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 um, they have good, what do you call it, karma from previous lifetimes, right? But it's going to come to an end. And then this is mine concept will be destroyed. So we shouldn't worry about why are they so cheap, so uh, they have so much money and I'm just struggling to make a living. No, they're also struggling. Although it looks like they're very rich and they have so much property and money, it's all an illusion. It'll all come to zero when they die. You can't take anything with you when you die except your karma. So we should learn to be karma free.
Mhm.
But the people who are very, you know, stingy and they're very uh, uh, moneyed and they have so many assets and so forth, all they're doing is just increasing their karma, which means they increase the time that they're going to suffer, life after life, for all that greed. So it's better to have nothing. When you have nothing, you have nothing to worry about. When I say nothing, everybody has something because everyone is getting their allotment by the mercy of Krishna. You can't say, I have nothing. No, but even the poorest man is getting something, you know, by the mercy of Krishna. So we should be satisfied with what we get by the mercy of Krishna
Right.
and not be jealous of others. Everybody has different type of karma.
Mhm.
So we should become karma free.
Right.
Okay.
When you said-
Of course, most people would disagree with me. But we have Srimad Bhagavatam. We don't care about what they believe or don't believe. We feel sorry for them, but we're not going to follow them thinking that we're missing something. They're missing Srimad Bhagavatam. So if you hear Srimad Bhagavatam every day, like we're doing, you feel completely satisfied because you're hearing how to prepare yourself to go back to Godhead. All these rich people, they are frightened by one thing: old age and death. They're frightened by it. They don't want to get old and die. They want to enjoy. It's not going to happen like that. So we should be satisfied with whatever Krishna gives us and maintain ourselves as genuine devotees, following the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness every day.
Haribo.
Adi. That's our uh, say our culture to chant Hare Krishna every day. Are these millionaires chanting Hare Krishna? Not even once. Not even once. So we don't have to worry. We can feel sorry for. It's like my friend who said, "Well, I chant once a day,
Once a year.
only on New Year's Eve, and I chant Hare Krishna once a day." But my once in the year, chanting is better than all the chanting that you're doing. So yeah, you can believe that if you want, but that's nonsense. Okay, all glories and
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
So we stopped at text number 11.
Yeah, we stopped at 10.
No, stop at that. Yeah, we're going to continue on text 12. All right, good.